So, I've wanted to make this video for a while, and I wanted to discuss or talk about grief and my experiences with grief, and how it's affected my art, and just generally my experiences of going through a grief process over the last couple of years, kind of explaining how that's affected me and what strange ways come out sideways sometimes the grief process has affected me. So please excuse the fact this may be done in one take, and I might not be the most compos mentis and speak the most sense, but I'll try. So, as some of you may know, my process or the grief started 2 years ago. A lot of you probably do know because a lot of you are my friends, and if you don't know, then I'll explain. My best friend Daniel was found in a river near where he lived. He'd suffered from 2 psychotic breaks, one the year before and one a couple of weeks before the incident of when he was found in the river. So the circumstances surrounding how he got in the river, what happened, are very vague, and of course there'll be no answers from anybody, because the only person that could really tell us what happened was Daniel himself, and he's not here to do that, so we kind of were left with that to deal with, as well as, you know, the grief of losing him. And a lot of people were affected by it. I mean, the funeral was full of people. He had a lot of really good friends, and they've been very badly affected by it, and so have his family. So maybe making this video might help somebody, or better help them understand the grief that they may be going through. So I'll go from what happened from when I heard the news. Basically, April 25th, 2017 was the date that I heard that Dan had died, and from, I think it was around about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and from that point my world basically fell apart at that point. It was as if the bottom had fallen out of my world, and as if my heart had broken, like physically in my chest had broken when I heard the news. His sister called me and told me, and it was a very fraught day and fraught moment for me. I'm in recovery as well, and I've been sober, or had been sober at that point, for around about 6 years, and the choice was either I go and have a drink, or I go and pick up a packet of cigarettes. So I chose to pick up a packet of cigarettes, which was the lesser of 2 evils, and started smoking again. I think I made the right choice, because Dan wouldn't have wanted me to start drinking again, because he was very proud of the fact that I'd stopped. So yeah, that was my first coping mechanism of upon hearing the news, was to go buy a packet of cigarettes. So the grief process for me has been long. It's not been linear. It's been backwards and forwards, from feeling okay to feeling incredibly distraught again. I don't know, it's just changed, the process has changed the whole of my world outlook. Probably not for the better in some ways, and I'll elaborate more on that in a bit. So, upon hearing the news, I was in denial. I was in shock. I literally had spoken to him on WhatsApp like 3 days before, so I couldn't believe that this was real, and I still didn't believe it was real until I saw Dan in the chapel of rest, and even then, kind of disassociation with reality happened, and I still, even though I had seen him, didn't believe that this tragic event had taken place. It was strange because I was sitting on the bus, and I didn't take any time off work. I was sitting on the bus, and I couldn't believe that people were enjoying their days, and I could see people laughing, and I could see people smiling and just generally being people and having a good time or enjoying themselves or living life. And I thought to myself, how is this possible that these people can continue doing this while this person has gone, while this amazing person has left, has died so suddenly? How can people, why does the world just not stop? I think that was one of my first thoughts. Dan was also an ex-partner. He was my best friend and an ex-partner from years ago. And we'd had some rough times and we'd had some amazing times, and as friends we'd been amazing friends, and we'd been able to talk to each other about everything. And one thing that really affected me about the whole process was he had said in that message, a week previously, that we would be friends forever. And that to me wasn't the case. I started to feel extremely angry that this had happened, and not just angry at the circumstances, but angry at him. And I didn't know what to do with that anger, and I felt bad for having that anger, for feeling that anger, because I thought, he'd been in such a hard place, or he'd been in such a place where he had felt, I don't know, circumstances around it are so grey, we don't really know what happened, but he'd been in a really difficult place mentally, and for me to say I felt really angry at him for leaving, for dying, felt wrong. In subsequent months of therapy that I had shortly after the incident, shortly after he died, I realised that actually was normal for me to feel angry about the loss, about his loss and him not being there anymore. But it took me a while to get used to that. I felt absolutely devastated. I didn't know what to do with my life at that point. It made me start to rethink the whole of my life and who I was and what I was doing. Would I ever meet somebody like that again? All these thoughts came into my mind, and the questions, the unanswerable questions. Why did this happen? Those questions still pop up occasionally now, but I'm never going to get answers to them, so they're kind of like they're wasted questions, so I just brush them aside now. But there were a lot of questions. Why did this happen? He was supposed to be there for always, so these questions popped up. I was a mess. I carried on going to work, which maybe might not have been the best thing to do, but it did kind of take my mind off it. So I carried on going to work. I couldn't think of a life without this person. I couldn't think of a life without Daniel. I couldn't imagine growing old and him not being there as a person in my life, as my best friend. So the process continued. I mean, I was distraught for months and months and months, but one of my coping mechanisms, or the way I worked through it, was to use Daniel, or the feelings around the loss of Daniel, in my artwork. It's become slightly a burden now, because I'm still using those feelings and emotions in my artwork, and creating the artwork around Daniel himself and the sort of the loss of now doing pieces on memory and the loss of those we love, kind of trying to piece those memories back together. But it was beginning. It was a real bonus to be able to use those feelings and emotions in the artwork I was doing, and it creates some very powerful artwork as well. There was a photograph, which you're about to see on the screen, which I took randomly when I came back from the gym, and I was feeling just had a workout, and I was feeling very raw when I came into the house, feeling very raw and vulnerable, as if I'd kind of been split open, you know, or just a newborn baby or something, just very vulnerable and didn't feel protected, de-shelled maybe. So I grabbed my camera, I went downstairs and I put the camera in the hallway, I stripped off, and I sat on the mat behind the door, waiting, as if I called the piece Waiting actually, waiting for someone to come to the door, waiting for him to turn up, or you know, waiting for something to save me. The hallway was quite dark. I'd edited the shot in black and white as well, and the outside was quite light, but it was as if I couldn't open the door. And that piece ended up being projected in the Tate Modern, as a few of you know, projected on the wall. And it showed me through the reception to that piece that actually using the raw energy and the raw emotion I was feeling was positive for my art, which is kind of weird because Dan would have been really happy that I was creating and that it was being, you know, picked up, or it was being seen by people and people were feeling the emotion from it. He probably would have been really happy about that. He was very happy that I'd started creating art and I'd exhibited and stuff like that before he passed away. So I know he would have been very happy about that. So yeah, that was one of the first pieces I did, and I still love that photograph now. It's very powerful for me to see it, and I did feel that. I did feel 100% vulnerable and raw and open, and you know, as if I'd been a cracked egg or something. Yeah, so that was a good piece. I enjoyed that. Well, I didn't enjoy it, but I feel there's a lot of power in that piece. That's probably what I'm trying to say. So when you say you're going to do it in one take, it never happens. Kind of lost it a bit, so I thought I'd start again, or another take, maybe 3 or 4 takes I might do it in. Yeah, so we talked about the photographic piece that I'd done. So that was one of the first pieces using Dan's, or using the energy and the feelings from Dan's passing that I was feeling. Feelings of loss, feelings of anger, feelings of love. It was weird. The way I dealt with grief in a lot of ways was, yes, I would talk about it, I would talk about how I felt, but then I would also shut it away in a kind of place in my mind, and I've been guilty of that over the last year and a half, maybe a year, of boxing it off, so boxing his memories away, the good memories, because the good memories are so painful to remember, because then I remember the fact that he's not there. So they've, as much as the good memories are amazing memories, they have to associate pain with them because that person is no longer there as well. And that's something I explore in the new work I'm doing for the exhibition in October in Edinburgh, which is also a really painful piece, and I'm looking forward to having all 3 finished, so I'd never have to look at them until they're on the wall again, because they've been very draining. Okay, so I wanted to show you just a few other little things that I did. So I did 2 really quick paintings of when he passed, or after he passed. It was as if I explained it to somebody. It was as if an unnamed organ in me had died, had, you know, suffered a shock, something that I never knew I needed, until it had gone, until it had, you know, died. So I painted just quickly with some acrylic and a little bit of kind of resin to thicken it up, this unnamed organ, and the first one was the healthy organ, as you can probably see. So it's the healthy organ, with joy, laughter, love, and you in it. This was entitled April 25th, 1300, so 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then the second one was this one, which is a kind of more necrotic, blackened kind of joy, laughter, love and you, which was entitled the 25th, at 1400, which is when I heard. I felt as if this organ had stopped existing, had kind of suffered a traumatic event and had just ceased, because I didn't feel at that point laughter or joy. I certainly didn't feel his presence anymore, and love kind of took a back seat. Self-love and loving others, I was just too distraught at that point to really deal with anything. As I said, I did have therapy, and therapy helped a lot. I only had a short period, about 3 months of therapy, and I would say to anybody going through the grief process, therapy is essential. It's something, if you can afford it, do it. And if you can't afford it, there are other ways to get it discounted, or put it on the NHS, or just do whatever you need to do to get that, because it's really important to be able to have somebody to talk to who is out of the situation, who it doesn't have pre-existing ideas and concepts and judgment around what you're feeling or what you want to say, which often people who are experiencing grief as well, or friends, family, etc., have. They don't mean to be judgmental, but they have those feelings and pre-existing judgments about what you should do, whereas a counsellor is just going to, or a therapist is just going to listen to you talk, maybe suggest things to open you up more, but not to constrict you and force you to do something a certain way, you know. Anyway, therapy was really good. It was very beneficial for me, and I'm glad I did it. There are 2 other pieces as well I had exhibited, which had reference to them, and those were the Facebook fake book pieces. I did 2 fake book pieces from a series, and the reasoning behind those, they're on the screen now, is how people can, postcards from the edge is what they were called, and it's how people can project this image of stability, or this they put on social media they're having such a great time, when in reality they could be extremely depressed or extremely lonely, or just feeling these really sad feelings, but they feel they have to project this positive image to the world, because that's what everybody seems to be doing on social media. So I wanted to highlight that, using old style postcards, and printing a Facebook status on them with an associated picture, telling the truth. The picture told the truth. The picture told, get in your face, put it in your face about, actually this is the way things are. The status was an elaborate lie, was a lie. So I exhibited those 2 in the Menia Gallery in Southwark Street, around, and that was inspired by, obviously, my thoughts of, if you looked at Dan's Facebook, you never would have been able to see that there was an issue, either surrounding the psychotic break or anything like that. You couldn't see that stuff. So I wanted to kind of highlight that to people, that, you know, sometimes what people put out there isn't the truth. You have to contact these people. You have to speak to people. You have to speak to your friends. You have to, you know, go see them, because you never know unless you actually go see them what's going on. I had a period of insomnia at some point. I think it was last year, and I couldn't sleep. I'd laid in bed for 2 hours and I couldn't sleep, so I got up and I picked up my ink. I just bought some inks and a little book, little what do you call it, a little sketchbook or whatever you would call it, journal, and I started to draw or paint. A weird process. I didn't know what it was at the time, but then it kind of moved and changed into how I see the process of grief for me. So I'll put it up on the screen as well so you can see it. So it was this process of kind of getting to this point where you are met by grief, and grief asks you to come, or you takes your hand and you follow grief into this kind of rabbit hole, as it were. Through a door, which I was quite scared to go through at the time. In my head, you've been here before many times. And on the door is grief. And when you open the door, I'm given the option to, you can stay here, you don't have to go through. But part of the process is you have to go through. You have to constantly go through it, and hopefully you'll come out the other side enlightened or stronger, although it's extremely tiring to constantly have to keep doing that. I mean, I could really do without it, but it is a process. When I first heard, I'm not afraid to say, when I first heard that Dana died, I had feelings of suicide myself. Not as if I was going to go and jump off a bridge, or as if I was going to actively go and do something, but there were periods of times where I thought, I could just end it right now. I'd say there was maybe 2 or 3 thoughts of that in the few weeks preceding when it happened. I was extremely distraught. So I'm going to be open about saying I did have those thoughts of suicide. And then I thought to myself afterwards, God damn, would have been really pissed off if I'd done that, so in the end I didn't. How does grief affect me now? It's changed me who I am as a person. This whole event has changed me as a person. If you had met me before it happened, I think you would probably have seen me as very upbeat. I was very positive. I was an optimist. And ever since this incident, ever since Dan passed away, I've become a bit more cynical. Somebody said to me today, I was out with a friend, and I said to them, how do you think I've changed? Because I've been asking my friends, how do you think I've changed, or do you think I've changed over the last couple of years? And he said to me, your tolerance has gone down. And somebody else had said to me earlier this year that my tolerance had gone down as well, and that I'd been a bit snappy. And I think that is an effect of what's happened. These are all things I'm trying to work on. I don't know how to really work on them at the moment, and to how to change that, or whether it's something I can change, or whether is it a choice, or is it defense mechanism, or I'm not too sure about that yet. But I'm working on that to try and bring back the old Adam. Whether that old Adam is still there, I don't know. Possibly under all the cynicism, Adam might still be there. He probably is. So yeah, it's changed me. It's changed me as a person. I don't think I'll ever get back to where I was before, exactly how I was before, because this has left such a massive hole in my life. And I have to remember that I have other friends around me. those friends deserve love and deserve me to talk to them and deserve my compassion and deserve the communication that we used to have. I think that's something that's so difficult for me, is I have never been able to vocalise that to my friends before, that I'm sorry that this has made our relationship suffer in some ways. I'm sure some people have experienced that from me, and it's not something intentional, but it's something that I feel it was a byproduct of going through this process of going so far down and then trying to kind of claw my way back up again. I did get quite depressed over the whole thing, as a lot of you know. I was quite depressed and had to make a conscious decision in 2018, probably middle of 2018, to fake it. Somebody said to me, fake it before you make it. So I faked happiness. And surprisingly, faking happiness got me out of the slump I was in, because I thought I had to sit with these emotions of sadness and to experience them fully, but I didn't let myself get out of them. I just sat in them and sat in them and sat in them, and there was no escape at that point, until I started to fake the happiness, and then the happiness came. So there are moments of happiness, there are moments of joy. There is still this undercurrent of, the only way I can explain it is grey. It's kind of muted. It's somebody's turned the saturation down on the world, and I'm hoping one day that the saturation will go back up, and I'll be living in full Technicolor again, and I'm quite positive that things will get better with time. It's a long process. It is a long process. I think I'm going to leave it there. I've done far too long already, probably about half an hour, but I just wanted to share with you guys my process so far, the story. I hope you found it illuminating. I hope it's given you some insight into who I am and what over the last 2 years has been my story. Thank you for listening.